What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, we got a good one for you guys. In this video, we're going to be going over some running backs that you should be targeting in the early rounds. Each year, we preach about how important it is to hit on your early round picks. So typically, when we're targeting players in the early rounds, we're valuing safety. Running back being a position itself that just tends to be a bit more volatile and thin. It's one of the main contributing factors as to why they go so early and so often in every year for fantasy football, ultimately making these early round running back target videos some of our most important. If you guys do enjoy these videos and want to see more like it, show your support by hitting that like button. That lets us know that not only do you support the channel, but want to see more content like this. Believe it or not, nearly 60% of our regular viewers are actually not subscribed to the channel, so if that just so happens to be you, consider subscribing today. Also, guys, just a quick shout out and reminder, our draft packages are available now, which do include all of our targets. You'll also gain access to our sleepers, our busts, video player breakdowns, risk ratings, and more. So if that interests you, you can access that at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Link for that, as always, in the description box below. With all of that being said, though, let's hop over to our stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was just 7 players had more than 70% of their team's carries inside the 5-yard line. James Robinson, Josh Jacobs, Gurley, Zeke, Drake, Henry, but which player was the 7th? The correct answer was actually Cam Newton. Congratulations to John Jacobs, the first to get this right on YouTube, and as for Twitter, at @IamSawyerHebs. Once again, congratulations to both of you, but as for today's stat of the day, in 2020, which running back was able to obtain the most first downs in the entire league, coming in with 98? Once again, that's which running back led the league in first downs, coming in with 98. Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. Without further ado, let's hop right into the video. And to start, I just wanted to begin with the running back that I believe not everybody may be on the same page with. That running back would be J.K. Dobbins of the Baltimore Ravens. And what I mean by mentioning that I don't believe everyone's on the same page is basically, I know some people have J.K. Dobbins virtually a top 5 running back. Other people may not feel confident drafting him within the top 20. It's a polarizing player because there's undeniable upside being on a Lamar Jackson-led offense, a team that we know is going to run the ball at a higher rate than nearly any in the NFL, but with Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards slated to take up a large portion of that volume, where does that leave J.K. Dobbins, and what can we expect from him for 2021? Well, considering we do have him included on this target video, that does kind of give you a glimpse into what the end result is going to be for us, but we can still answer all of those questions. The best place to start, of course, would be to rewind back to last season, take a look at his production, painting a picture of his story up to this point. Last season, as a rookie, J.K. Dobbins put up respectable numbers: 925 total scrimmage yards, 9 total touchdowns. He did fumble twice, but for a player in a crowded backfield who wasn't really given a full opportunity to start the season, these are pretty respectable numbers. What I mean by him not really gaining an opportunity to begin the season is because in the beginning of the 2020 year, Mark Ingram was actually soaking up a large portion of the snaps. Prior to Mark Ingram going down with an injury in week 6 against the Philadelphia Eagles, he had averaged up until that point 10 touches per game, double the amount of touches J.K. Dobbins was receiving through that span. And although J.K. Dobbins was being the primary running back used in the passing game, it's undeniable Mark Ingram was eating up way too many touches and targets for J.K. Dobbins to have any real fantasy value. With Mark Ingram getting injured in week 6, the Ravens having their bye in week 7, from week 8 on, we get a good idea of how J.K. Dobbins will be used in an offense without Mark Ingram, likely mirroring something similar to what we can expect for this upcoming season, considering this is a Mark Ingram-less Baltimore Ravens squad, with Ingram now on the Houston Texans. Through that span, we saw J.K. Dobbins' snap share increase dramatically. He went from a player who was averaging in the 30s for snap share, boasting a single game high up to that point of a 42% snap share. Now, post week 8, J.K. Dobbins is receiving over 50% of all snaps out of the Baltimore Ravens backfield, while also serving as the team's primary pass-catching running back. Ultimately, to close out the regular season, J.K. Dobbins averaged 13.4 PPR fantasy points for the remainder of the year. Extremely respectable numbers, paying dividends for anybody who invested a draft pick into him in the 2020 fantasy football draft. The Baltimore Ravens team itself felt very comfortable having a combination of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards leading this team from the backfield, so much so that even Mark Ingram was listed as a healthy scratch in a playoff game, and we all know teams in the NFL are going to be putting their best foot forward, bringing in their best roster they possibly can in the NFL playoffs. It's win or go home, of course, so it wouldn't make sense otherwise. So for the team to feel comfortable leaving Mark Ingram off of the roster for that game, despite him actually being healthy and available, it speaks volumes to their confidence level in both of those players, which in turn gives us even more confidence when selecting them in 2021 fantasy drafts. So now it's time to answer the big question, why is J.K. Dobbins a target for us this upcoming season? Well, the answer is pretty obvious. This is a running back on a team we want to get a piece of this backfield. Whether it means drafting Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins, you really can't go wrong with either one, and I believe the value of them on draft day are just too immense to pass up. The price and investment in order to nab him and gain him on your team really isn't all that much. We're talking RB2 price tag here, and this is a player who has an undeniable top 5 ceiling. Gus Edwards is going to be the main running back competing with him for targets and touches, but we do know J.K. Dobbins is going to be the primary running back that they use in the passing game, and even though the Lamar Jackson-led Baltimore Ravens aren't really known for their short passing game to the running back position, having a running back with a guaranteed floor in the receiving game is going to help you in avoiding those bust weeks. It's also going to add to those ceiling weeks, those games where a single player helps carry your team to a win that week. And with J.K. Dobbins' proven nose for the end zone, I wouldn't be surprised to see him completely featured in that area of the field. J.K. Dobbins had 25 carries inside the red zone. 8 of those carries actually resulted in a touchdown. Compare that to Gus Edwards, still respectable in that area, converting 6 of those into touchdowns. But when the team was close, we're talking inside the 10, inside the 5. That's exactly where J.K. Dobbins completely shined. In last season, J.K. Dobbins converted an astounding 8 rush attempts inside the 5-yard line into a whopping 7 touchdowns. Yes, of course, it helps that they have Lamar Jackson on the team, but Lamar Jackson isn't going anywhere. This team added weapons in the receiving game. This team made additions to help them get better offensively. Lamar Jackson, another year into his career with more NFL experience, he's now a player who's faced some adversity. This is a team that's one of the best coached in the entire NFL. Guys, all signs are pointing to J.K. Dobbins having a phenomenal season this year, and when looking at positional rankings, this is a player falling outside the top 15. If you're able to grab him at anything close to that price tag, we definitely recommend you target him. But let's move on to the next player, and believe it or not, this next player is becoming one of my favorite picks in the draft. It's none other than Austin Ekeler of the LA Chargers. Unfortunately, due to injury last season, anybody who did draft Austin Ekeler likely regretted it. This was, of course, a player who did cost a borderline first, second round pick, and ultimately, due to injury, appeared in 10 of 16 games, finishing outside the top 24 at running back, but on a per game basis while healthy, he was still pretty darn good. Looking back at his season totals, it's really not a fair picture of what he was accomplishing throughout the 2020 season. His per game averages, though, definitely do show exactly how well he was performing while on the field. We're talking about a running back who is averaging 11.6 rush attempts per game, 53 rushing yards, 6.5 targets per game, 5.4 receptions per game, and add an additional 40 yards per game in the receiving game. So right there, you're talking about a player who is averaging over 90 scrimmage yards per game. Also a player boasting a really strong receiving floor, meaning before you're adding in any touchdowns, any receiving yards, any rushing yards, this is a player who's going to put up around 5 points, making it virtually impossible for them to dud. That's not to say that Ekeler also doesn't come with an immense amount of upside. Don't forget his 2019 season, completely phenomenal. We're talking he finished as the RB4 in all of fantasy. This was, of course, while he was competing for touches and targets with Melvin Gordon. In that season, he only put up 557 rushing yards, highlighting his extremely unique and high-end skill set in the receiving game as a running back, on the back of 108 targets, 92 receptions, a whopping 993 receiving yards, and even 8 receiving touchdowns. Simply put, those are just numbers that nearly no running backs in the league even have the ability to put up. Yes, the Christian McCaffreys of the world can do this. Yes, the Alvin Kamara's of the world can do this. But that's why those players are going as top 5 picks at the running back position. Austin Ekeler, borderline top 12. I don't really understand why many people are concerned over him. Yes, he was injured, but he really doesn't have a long list of injury history. In addition to that, last season we had him drafted at around the same spot, around that RB11, RB10 area. But heading into last season, we cannot forget that we had Tyrod Taylor slated to be the starter with a rookie Justin Herbert, unproven and unknown, how well he would produce, slated to be the backup. All of that was unknown, but heading into this season, all of those concerns are also put to rest. Justin Herbert had one of the best rookie seasons we have seen in all of NFL history. The only substantial weapon that they lost offensively was Hunter Henry, but let's be frank, his 600 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns can easily be spread across other members of the LA Chargers passing offense. I strongly believe that when we're comparing the level of risk offensively for Austin Ekeler last year when compared to this year, it's night and day different. There's no major concerns for the LA Chargers offensively this year. Last season, that wasn't really the case, yet the price tag for him's the same. After yet again proving himself on a per game basis, need I remind you, over 5 receptions per game, over 6 targets per game, over 90 scrimmage yards per game, and while the touchdowns, no, they weren't there. Despite receiving all of those touches, Austin Ekeler only reached pay dirt on 3 occasions. But if you think about it, guys, isn't that a player put in a prime position to possibly exceed expectations? Let's say touchdown variance goes in his favor as opposed to against him. Last season, him receiving that whopping amount of touches but only receiving 3 touchdowns. Well, let's say touchdown variance was on his side, and instead of disappointing in that area, he exceeded expectations in that area. Well, that's a running back that could instantly be put into the top 5, with Hunter Henry being a tight end, a big body tight end, a weapon that typically would be used in the red zone. This opens up even more opportunities for other players to get involved in that area of the field, and with Keenan Allen not necessarily being a strong suit of his, and Austin Ekeler proving just 2 seasons ago to be able to have 8 receiving touchdowns coming from the backfield, this is certainly a player that does have a massive amount of touchdown upside within his range of outcomes, and it seems like right now, barring injury, we're drafting him at his floor. Like I said, he is quickly becoming one of my favorite picks at the running back position in the early rounds, and we definitely recommend you target him. Alright guys, we are moving into the final running back on today's early round running back target list, and it's going to be none other than Antonio Gibson. I did want to include him on this list to double down on the fact that he is a target for us, but also touch on some recent news. This recent news is going to force us to put somewhat of an asterisk next to the name of Antonio Gibson when it comes to being a target, and the reason being is because it seems like that toe injury that was nagging Antonio Gibson towards the tail end of last season, it still seems to be bothering him, despite word that in OTAs he's running and cutting at full speed, which is obviously a good sign. Gibson is still reporting some discomfort, and when it comes to an injury like turf toe, this is definitely an injury that can re-aggravate, so we're hoping that by the start of the season this is something completely behind him. Like I said, that's why I did want to put an asterisk next to his name, because if he is going to be dealing with an injury right out of the gate, then that is going to have to be factored into his ADP. Currently we have him ranked as a player slated to start the season healthy, and although he's trending in the right direction, this is definitely a situation we want to monitor. Once again, we have to stress the importance of hitting on our early round picks, valuing safety, and drafting an injured player right out of the gate, maybe assuming just too much unnecessary risk when there are so many other great options. At this point though, don't forget Antonio Gibson is still a target of ours, and one of the main reasons why is because not only is Antonio Gibson a superior talent at the running back position, a versatile running back with a nose for the end zone, but Antonio Gibson finds himself on an offense that seems to be ascending in every possible way. This is a well-balanced team and now seems to be well coached by head coach Ron Rivera, a head coach with a proven track record of success, and this isn't a team that just made one minor change or one acquisition or trade to just flip the narrative on their head of being either an ascending team or a descending team. No, this is a team that over the past few seasons has made small and incremental changes, improving slowly but in all areas of their game. One of the main strengths of this team definitely has to be their defense. This is a defense where even last season, where they were heavily struggling offensively, this defense was able to keep them within 1 score of many opponents. We can't undervalue how important it is to have a running back on a team where the game script is going to be positive, knowing that you're going to be within 1 score of your opponent or possibly in a lead for many of the games throughout the season is going to definitely help lead to more touches and targets out of the backfield. And as we know in fantasy football, volume is king, but even when comparing last season to this season, this team made heavy strides into improving this team offensively. Reportedly, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who signed a 1-year deal earlier this offseason, is slated to be the starter of the Washington football team, which is much better quarterback play than they had for the majority of last season. In addition, the team did pay Taylor Heineke, an upside pick at the quarterback position, somebody who's not expected to perform all that well, but definitely has it in the wheelhouse. On top of that, this team added one of the most underrated free agent wide receivers in the entire league this offseason, that is Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel, being one of the most versatile wide receivers in the entire league, is going to be able to fit into this offense in nearly any possible way they need him. Not only should this open up more opportunities for Terry McLaurin, who will help push the ball downfield, open up more scoring opportunities for Antonio Gibson himself, but in addition, Curtis Samuel will fill a role similar to what J.D. McKissic was filling last season, which ultimately will lead to less snaps for J.D. McKissic and in turn meaning more snaps for Antonio Gibson. More volume is directly going to lead to more fantasy points for a player like Antonio Gibson, a player who's been miraculously efficient on his touches, even despite being in situations less than ideal for a running back playing from behind. Rarely do we see running backs playing from behind that are able to do things like average 5+ yards per carry. Antonio Gibson, though, one of the few that can do that, and this team appears to be doing every possible favor they can to help the running game, help the efficiency of Antonio Gibson, and so long as he's able to avoid injuries and the turf toe is behind him by the start of the season, Antonio Gibson makes for one of the better targets in the earlier rounds at the running back position. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. We really hoped you enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.